What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the show. We are your hosts, Chase and Myles, and we are at the Lucky Duck. Thanks for listening in, tuning in, watching us sip tasty cocktails and talk about absolutely nothing.
Damn, this is good.
You like it?
What is it?
Cheers.
Cheers.
This is the tequila version of a bee's knees. I haven't tried it yet. Give it a good smell.
Dang, I could have like 3 or 4 more of these. So refreshing.
Honestly, that is pretty good.
What is in bee's knees?
Bee's knees traditionally, I think, is like a vodka drink, but this one has tequila, lemon juice, and honey syrup, which I made just by combining hot water and honey, equal parts.
Damn.
Pretty easy.
I like it. It's, I feel like, it's welcoming. Not too sweet. It's got a good flavor. I like the alcohol in it too.
Yeah.
So you said this is tequila, but there's normally vodka.
I think it's normally vodka in the bee's knees. This tequila comes from Telluride, Colorado. It's actually they don't even call it tequila. They just call it agave liquor.
Ooh.
So it's 100% blue agave tequila, which is like, I think the gold standard for a good tequila, using like a blue agave.
Not like the fake ones, right?
Not like them fake agaves.
What do they use? It's
Fake
not
agaves.
it's agavo.
I don't think it's blue agave. I think there's a couple of different like agave plants.
Oh, that's bullshit.
Yeah, the
I
best
want the
one I
cheap
guess
one.
is largely known to be the blue agave plant.
Do you think it's blue colored?
I think it does have like a blue spruce, has that type
Really?
of like kind of, it's not a blue, but it's like a gray, pale blue, look to it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's definitely it's got that blue hue to it, and that makes sense why it's called blue agave. Even though it's probably not why.
Yeah.
No, it's because it's in the desert, right? And
Yep.
and people looked at it and they were like, blue. I'm tripping right
Let's
now.
suck on this. Let's
Yeah, get the juice out.
let's
What do? They get the juice out and then they
ferment it.
Ferment it, okay.
Yeah.
Like grapes?
I guess, yeah, kind of. They like hold it. They can hold it in barrels. They distill it, I think.
Oh, look at this one. How many bottles do you think you get out of this thing?
At least 5.
I would say so.
I don't know.
But look, this plant right here, you see this and you see like this cactus and you see that other cactus and then this one over here and then this one. There's so many different plants. Like, who is the guy? Like, do you think they tried all of them? They took a little sample of each one?
I always think about this,
Yeah.
like how many people have died, but just like trying stuff. Like, hey, Steve, try this. Like there's at least one guy in every tribe that was dumb enough,
Yeah.
or had that thing, or at least didn't have that thing in your brain that makes you risk adverse. His name was Steve, and he just went around trying stuff. They'd grab him, and he'd be like break out in hives for like 2 weeks from eating X or Y.
Is that what they did? It's just tribal leader was like, now this.
He's like, I have declared now this week we are trying this plant. Let's figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them they tripped on real hard. Some of them they made tequila with.
Just like centuries.
Some of them they died.
Centuries of just trial and error. People getting sick, doing stuff. Try this when you're pregnant. Not a good idea. That's how, we got all.
That's how they tried it.
That's
how we got Gen
try it
X.
when you get Jimmy over here, the amputee. Let's see if this will make his limb grow back. They're just trying stuff. Everybody was just.
You think that's how they did it? Yeah, no science behind it, just trying it. That's bad.
The scientific method came a little bit afterwards when the one guy was like, I see a pattern here,
right,
of how we should conduct our new studies.
I don't know if we might need a scientist on for this.
It all started with blue agave. They landed on blue agave after 50 people had died from trying 50 other plants.
I don't care. I like it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a good drink.
Look, people have to die for everything, right?
Can't be any good without the bad, right? There's an equal balance of things.
When we made cars were great for us. People died.
They had to.
People are gonna die. So I heard a rumor, but I'm not gonna say the rumor until later in the show. And then whoever hears it and comments it on our YouTube video first gets a PlayStation Portable.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll personally deliver it to you.
Dang. Personally. You heard it there. You heard it here, folks.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's get into it.
Okay. I have a game to play.
All right.
Today.
What did you bring for us?
So, this is the fun version of fact or fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to read a few.
Are there jelly beans involved?
There's no jelly beans this time. So we're going to we're just going to throw out a few, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The character of James Bond was originally written as an American. You ever heard this one before?
No, I don't think that's true.
It is fiction. It is not true. Here is going to be your favorite one of the day. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson eats over 5,000 calories a day while training for movie roles.
Yes.
That is true. But is that really a hard question?
It's not. That's not a totally unbelievable thing if you know a little bit about, I don't know, nutrition and bodybuilding. Like bodybuilders need like tons of calories, right?
Yeah. I mean, think about like if I eat 3,000 calories a day, I'll gain some weight. But it won't be like a ton of weight. I'll gain weight over time.
It'll be like slowly.
He's like 3 times the size of me. You know what I mean? So it'd be pretty easy to see 5,000.
Yeah, totally. Especially when you're weight training or like trying to get bulked up for a movie or something, you know?
Do you think while he's not filming or being a wrestler, I don't even know if he does that anymore, but
yeah, sometimes he does.
Does he?
Mm-hmm.
Because I saw John Cena did it the other day, right?
Yeah, they both do it. They both have been doing it for the last couple of years, I think, like joining back the WWE thing.
Oh, so they were out of the game for a bit, and they just
they like bring them back for a spell.
Okay,
I think
it kind of hypes people up.
It does.
I gotta imagine.
Yeah, like with anything, you know, when the fan base starts to tire, they bring back nostalgic.
I wonder how much they get paid for that.
Oh, I'm sure so much.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they're movie stars. I mean, The Rock, I think, gets paid a ton of money because all the kids love watching him, right?
Yeah, there's that. I think he also just generally likes to do it.
Oh.
I think the culture of it.
Oh, the wrestling.
Yeah, professional wrestling. Yeah. He's talked about it in like a sort of a glorious way, a romantic way. So is John Cena, but I think the fans like it. There's also like the inverse when I can't remember what it's called. There's a particular term in WWE where you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know what it is, but yeah, I know.
Yeah, the heel, I think it's called, or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, where you like play the bad guy character, and everybody like boos at you, and yeah, I think he's talked about like that part of it's not as fun as being like the hero.
Has he ever been the bad guy?
Yeah, I think he started out as a good guy, and then they like made him the bad guy. So he had to come out to like, this was when he was before the big, you know, stardom and blockbuster movies thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had to like play the bad guy for a while.
Was he really popular before movies, or did movies make him? I mean, maybe in WWE, but like outside of wrestling culture, he wasn't really known, right?
Not as much, I think. I remember hearing The Rock when I was younger. Like I've remembered the name specifically because I remember playing on a playground at a camp. We were camping or somewhere, and some kid was remarking on how our dad looked like The Rock, kind of. And our dad can do like the little like eyebrow thing. That was like one of the things that The Rock did. He'd like raise one eyebrow, and he could do that. And the kid was like, "Oh my god, yeah, you can do it just like him."
That's funny.
So I remember that. That was a really long time ago. But
we have a YouTube video with our dad one of the podcasts. So if you want to compare, go look at it.
Yeah. I think it's number 13, if I remember.
That's
way back
good
ago.
memory.
Yeah.
We're on like 200.
Yeah, 200.
203. 227.
90 ago.
Yeah, that's
I think it was in the movies though, right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't remember if I knew him before or after. I don't even remember what movie I probably first saw him in.
Mm-hmm.
But it might have been that. And then I feel like he got even more popular because of like TikTok.
Well, I think actually it became before that when he joined the Fast and Furious franchise. I think that made him like a global superstar.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
along with people like John Cena and Jason Statham was also pretty famous before he joined the Fast and Furious, but all those guys, they joined and like instantly they were known like pretty globally. Like in China, Fast and Furious movies are a really big deal.
Okay.
And just about anywhere, you know, and you can kind of see sort of like the global trend, like the progression of those films to like become more inclusive or approachable from like a global standpoint.
Makes you really popular once you're global.
Yeah, like it's just, you can just see it in the movies. It's like all unapologetic like action movie with like super fake stunts and stuff like that. Yeah,
sure.
Like
It was John Cena in Fast and Furious?
Yeah, he's Dom's. I think he's like Dom's brother, or like Dom's brother.
Was he in it a lot?
He ends up spoiler. He ends up dying. He ends up sacrificing himself in the last movie.
One of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's pretty popular, like in China, right? I mean, he had that apology video.
It was for the Fast and Furious movie that.
Oh,
came
was it?
out. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He had,
Wow.
He had this like famous like apology video. Can't remember what he did. I think it was some sort of like.
It was Taiwan.
Oh yeah, he had mentioned something about Taiwan.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Don't do that.
Yeah.
Not good."
Which is interesting because I didn't know that Chinese people, like not just the government, were really sensitive about it. Right? Or maybe the country of China just made it seem that way.
Yeah, you know, they don't want people talking about it. They sort of want to do the opposite of what Trump does, which is like, you know, publicly announce exactly your intentions and what you want to do. They're sort of like, the more they can suppress journalism or, you know, any sort of visual, like, you know, the Tiananmen Square photo is like one of the like more famous examples of that. You know, they don't even know what happened to that guy.
Oh yeah?
They don't even know who he is. They're like kind of sure, but they can't prove it, that like basically the Chinese took him in and like basically removed him.
Like, do we know if it's even real?
Yeah, we know it's real.
Oh, okay.
We for sure know it's real. They don't think he's a student, because that was like the whole thing, the student protests and stuff. They think he was just like a guy coming home from like the grocery store and just was like, I've had it up to here with these fucking tanks. So it was just like, fuck these guys. Walks right in the middle of them. You know, you can see his little grocery bag that he has with him. And yeah, this podcast definitely is going to be pulled down in China. Now that we're showing this photo.
So this doesn't exist on the Chinese search engines.
Nope. And he like climbs up on top of it.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, at one point.
Is there a video of it? Or just
there's
photos?
a video of this. Yeah.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
wow. That's
There's like a whole video of it.
Yeah,
they don't really know what happened to him.
From 1989?
Just kind of vanished out of thin air. So one can kind of assume, right, that Chinese don't want this guy hanging out, because he could be used as a sort of a symbol of freedom and, you know.
Right. That's so weird. That's such a weird thing that like you and I'm sure we've all experienced it, like in any country, your government censoring something.
Mm-hmm.
Like just making it not real.
Yeah, and you can't really understand it until you yourself have, in one form or another, been like silenced or, you know, censored. There's of course like the the self-censorship that happens, that we all do.
Self-censorship? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, arguably more powerful than
Authoritarian?
Yeah, authoritarian censorship. Yeah, self-censorship is like when you make the decision on your own not to say something because of fear of retaliation against something or someone. You know, maybe, for instance, we self-censor ourselves on this podcast. Maybe we don't say a few things that we want to because maybe our jobs could listen and fire us for saying something. Or, you know, if if we actually had ads on the show, maybe we wouldn't want to say something because we would lose ad sponsorship or,
right.
you know. So, yeah, it happens because money talks, money fuels everything, right? So
Yeah.
it's partly why the media industrial complex kind of, you know, the way it operates in our country. We have free media like laws to a certain extent, but they all self-censor because of advertisers and money that comes in, right? So that's like that's like I said, in some cases more powerful and more effective than actual like government handing down censorship, because that's like very public, and you can like kind of quantize it in a way where like self-censorship you can't. It's like kind of behind the scenes. It's like the stuff that you don't talk about, and that's like, you know, it can become more infectious.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah, I wonder. I feel like, and maybe it's just like I have felt a little bit like that since Trump became president, and I wonder like what the real reason is. Is it just because I didn't vote for him, and he's like very loud about punishing people, or is it is it more legitimate that I feel that way than under, say, Biden or even Trump in his first term? I feel that more now than I have ever felt. Like I can't say certain things in public, or I am like, I feel nervous like traveling abroad and coming back home because of going through immigration, for instance.
Oh, I think it's a couple things. For me, at least, it's like it's so early to judge or say something when something so recently has changed. You have to like give it time. So like maybe in like half, if you're talking about like speaking against like the current administration or something, I think, for example, if you were like 2 years into the presidency, then you could like actually like have an opinion with data to back up, like good data, not just like 100 days of presidency data, which is like kind of weak to speak on. There's also like just the general temperature of immigration to like, I don't know, speak on what you were talking about when it comes to like coming back into the country. I think there's just like a lot of press that has caused a substantial amount of fear as it pertains to like moving across borders, tightening up on immigration, things like that. But for you really shouldn't have any trouble with that. But you could probably sense there may be like a vibe in the air that has like a little more.
It feels like it, yeah. I mean, like talking to coworkers, like we were suggesting that, hey, finally we should have a meeting in the U.S. instead of us always traveling to you guys. And some of them were saying that they're hesitant to come to the U.S. right now because they've said a lot of bad things about Trump and stuff. And
oh, gotcha. So they think like there's like their FBI agent when they come in is going to be like, oh, hey, you know.
Yeah, because there's been examples of like I think it was a German citizen or something that got put into like a detention center for like a couple weeks or something. Things like that where...
Wait, was he like very outspoken about America or something like that?
I don't remember what it was, but there's been examples of it in the media, and I'm sure they're making it seem even worse over in Europe, right? Because like it's not the U.S., so they want to make things seem a little bit worse, competition, all that kind of stuff. fear mongering. They have their own agenda, whatever it is. And then like you see, I've seen videos of like ICE going into people's homes without warrants and stuff. That's what people claim. I don't know if it's true. I'm not there. So it's just weird seeing all those things. And I think maybe that's something that has happened anyway over the last 100 years, but that I don't see it. Like, it's not front and center.
Yeah.
So maybe just all those things make me feel more anxious about it. Whereas it's like always happening.
It's hard. Yeah. It's so hard to gauge what level of intensity things are happening at when the people reporting on these things have so much to gain out of polarizing the situation, and the clickbait culture is like at higher than it's ever been with media companies and things like that. And then when you have like a polarizing administration that comes in, like, shoot, you could make it look like they could not get anything done if they really cared about public opinion, because the left would attack them so hard on moving the needle in one direction or the other, and making it seem more extreme than it really is. It's so hard to tell. Like, how do you parse through that? How do you parse through all the stories and the videos that you speak about and say, to your point, has this always happened? Is this normal? Is this not normal? Are we seeing it now just because everything's sort of globalized and put in front of our faces for our viewing? I don't know. I mean, there are, you could point to certain examples, I think, that you could probably back up with an air of certainty. I just don't know about the immigration thing.
I think what makes me nervous, or probably other people, are the exceptions. Like, I don't know how many people coming in and out of the U.S. every day at every international airport. There's so many of them, right? And so the chance of someone getting stuck in a detention center for a month, it probably has happened. And then and now that that the U.S. is becoming very strict on immigration, the media is probably highlighting those issues. And when you see something like that, you think that could happen to me. I could accidentally be deported. That's weird. I don't actually feel that way. Like the guy who was like supposedly accidentally deported, right? The husband of that woman who was a U.S. citizen.
You're talking about the guy that went to Salvador.
Exactly. Yeah. Jail. And they're like, well, we don't know how to bring him back, basically, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not like that guy. Like, I don't think he was actually a citizen, right?
I don't know.
So I'm not afraid that like I'm gonna accidentally be deported to a Venezuelan or a El Salvadorian prison, but it makes you feel weird when accidents do happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially under the sort of already suspicious nature of this administration's like goals when it comes to immigration and all that stuff.
Yeah, so it's weird,
but on the bright side, though, we talk about media and stuff. At least we have the freedom to say, like, hey, I don't think that's right, or I think we should be doing it a different way. And you can say that without getting, put in jail.
Yeah, and
for the most part, I think just generally speaking, like places like Cuba, you couldn't do that.
Sure.
I just finished this book called Cuba Libre. It's really good. It's about the N26 revolution, which is like the Fidel and Che revolution that overthrew the dictatorship to like instill socialism in Cuba. And right now, like, I don't know, I think I was reading on the Wikipedia that like the World Free Press Organization, whatever they call themselves, rates Cuba one of the worst when it comes to free press. Like, they heavily censor things, and if you speak out against the current government, like, you can be thrown in jail. Like government opposition is punishable by like jail sentence over there.
Is living in Cuba worse or do people have less rights now than they did under Fidel's ruling? Do you know?
Oh, well, like it's the same government. It's just different people in charge right now. Because Fidel stepped down in '08 because of his health conditions and eventually died in 2016. But his brother took over after he stepped down. And then his brother, Raul Castro, stepped down. And now there's like a new guy that was elected. But it's like, it's not an election. And people don't get to actually vote. It's like a... It's like a
election of elites.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's like a ministry of people that elect.
So it's a government like Democrats,
Socialism,
right? Like the Democratic Party is in power, or whoever, right? Mm-hmm. It's like whatever they're called.
They don't really have parties. Like they have like, I guess they do have like political factions, but for the most part, it's like one. It's not. They don't really have like opposing political views over there.
And you said there's a socialist country.
Yeah, it's called socialism, but it's really like it's based off of communism. Like that's how their declaration or their constitution. It's like founded in Marxism.
Wasn't Fidel considered a dictator?
He was, yeah, basically. That's what the United States basically labels it as, but they would call it, he's like the president.
Okay, so the country doesn't recognize themselves as having a dictator.
No.
It's what someone else would label them as.
Yeah, it's a presidency. It's kind of weird how it all happened because there was like a president. It's always... For full disclosure, like anytime there's like a dictator, like that government doesn't like call them like a dictator.
Okay.
They call them like the president.
I don't know if people know that because I didn't know that necessarily. Yeah. I know we've called certain people dictators who aren't officially, but I didn't know if there was. I mean, there could be like a government that is a dictatorship, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's like that would be like United States calling Putin a dictator.
Okay. Or
like Fidel Castro is a dictator. Sure, yeah, it's an authoritative. I can never say that word, but it's basically he has all the power and everybody beneath him really. It's like
North Korea calls themselves a republic too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's funny. I'm now reading The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is kind of funny because it's mostly satire, and like the federal galaxy empire, like the president of that has no real power.
Yeah,
it's just like a figurehead, and I think in a lot of like democracies it's that way, where it's like the president is elected by the people, but it actually doesn't really work that way. Behind the scenes, there's really like 6 people in charge, whatever. Okay. But yeah, in this case. He wanted to overthrow. They wanted to overthrow in Cuba the government there because it was acting as like a dictator. The guy's name was like Batista, and
so this was
they wanted to instill
when
democracy.
Was this like who was in
late 1950s? It started in 1957.
And who was in power at that time?
Batista. Yeah.
Batista was in power.
Yeah, because back before him there was another coup. And before that, it was like the island was under U.S. occupancy, so there's a lot of like U.S. assets there. So the government has a couple of regime changes, eventually lands on Batista, and then Castro was a student in Havana and started to like recognize that like this isn't like right. There should be like a democracy. People should elect the guy, and that was his big thing. Is like as soon as we get power, we'll hold democracies within 18 months, and so yeah, he gets like kicked out of Cuba, and he like spends time in Mexico training with this like Argentinian guy, Che, which everybody knows that guy's name.
Michael Che from SNL.
Yeah, Michael Che from SNL. And they take this like tugboat called the Grandma that holds 82 soldiers, and they set sail. They go on this little tugboat ship for 5 days, just like
From where?
from
like,
Mexico.
Brazil? Oh, from Mexico.
From
yeah,
Mexico,
okay.
yeah. They land in the marshes like in Cuba, like not even close to where they wanted to, and like more than half of them die. In fact, I think like 12 to 16 of them like actually survive. And over the next course of like 3 years, they basically play guerrilla warfare and like overthrow the government. It's an incredible story.
And this
But
was Batista was the president of
he was the
Cuba.
quote unquote president, but he was a dictator by all
he
stretches
was
of
as
the
well.
means. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. And that's like, history will prove that like one dictator after another. Like you like all these like coups and regime changes, especially when they happen. The United States is like they have a track record of overthrowing governments and instilling dictators, but in this case, they didn't really like pick a side. They like funded and gave arms to Batista's army, and that
Is
left
the
a
count of Castro and him going and meeting the Argentinian guy and doing this? Is this he told someone this, or
it's all based off of a lot of it's in Che's diary.
Okay.
And then there's a bunch of different. Celia is like the woman who was like Fidel's partner. There's a lot of like notes from her. It's like a well researched historian's like understanding of the situation as like neutral as it can be. I think it's written by an American. Yeah, so yeah, they eventually like playing the guerrilla warfare thing end up using that tactic to go from town to town in the rural areas of Cuba to like
get support basically.
Get support from the farmers and the peasants as they called them, and using like sympathy when it comes to like capturing the army. Like they would like capture an army base and then take all their weapons and let them free. Like, we're not going to execute you. They would execute some people, but like only if they like really deserved it. But that would like the ripple effect had like a of like, hey, like the rebels, they won't kill you if you give up. It had a compounding ripple effect throughout the army that basically demoralized the dictator's army. And they did a lot of things that made them seem a lot bigger than they actually were. Like they would, like normal guerrilla tactics, which would be like pop out of the jungle, shoot, and then like go back in, hide, go around the side, pop back out. If you're the army base, you have no idea which side they're coming from, and that's intimidating. I think a lot of it had to do with like psychological warfare too. They actually like have a story about them outfitting like a Caterpillar tractor, with like armoring it with like a couple machine guns and a flamethrower, and they called it the Dragon. And so like apparently that had like they would like drive this thing in the middle of the night into a base and turn the flamethrower on, and like it would like scare the shit out of like people. Thought there was like the rebels were like I don't know, making monsters in the jungle. Stuff like that. So there's so many different times during the 3 years that it took them basically to do all this. They should have like just end up dying or like giving up, but they just never did. And
they went from like 12 or 13 people and eventually became so powerful that they became the ruling government. And was there a time, did they get to Batista? Was that his name, Batista?
Yeah, Batista.
And chop his head off or say, we're the leader, I'm the leader now? Or what? How was that transition?
No, it's weird because they don't get to that point. In fact, spoiler alert, Batista ends up flying off with like 100 of his like closest confidants and allies.
To where?
To the Dominican Republic, because the United States denied him access. He eventually ends up living the rest of his days in Portugal and then does some real estate dealings in Spain.
Really?
Yeah, ends up because like the guy was like kind of a shit, like a dirtbag. Like so the current status in Cuba at the time was like Havana was like the bee's knees. Everybody wanted to be there. Tourism was like the biggest, and still kind of is the biggest economic generator for the country. They have tobacco and sugar exports, but during that time, they relied heavily on the casino business. There was like 3 or 4 big casinos, all run by like the Jewish mafia back in the United States, out of Miami, and Batista was like getting money from them.
Hold on, there was a Jewish mafia in Miami?
Oh yeah, dude.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was like a Tropicana there.
Yeah,
there still is actually. The gambling was outlawed after Fidel took power in '59, and it was immediately outlawed, and so the mafia was driven out.
Yeah.
I guess like the guy, the Jewish guy in Miami that owned all of them. Why is the name Meyer Lansky coming?
Myra?
Meyer Lance. I can't remember the guy's name. The Jewish type this in.
Meyer Lansky?
Yeah, isn't that his name?
He was known as the mob's accountant, was an American organized crime figure who, along with his associate Charles Lucky Luciano, was instrumental in the development of the National Crime Syndicate in the U.S. He was a member of the Jewish mob.
Yeah.
And he developed a gambling empire.
Yeah, so he was like based out of Miami, and like I don't know, he was the guy that was running all these and benefiting from the casinos in Havana. It was like it was like they had cruise ships come in and people flying. Ernest Hemingway had a residence there. It's actually one of the most popular tourist attractions now to go do when you're in Cuba. But they raked it in there with the casinos, and so I think they estimated that Batista ended up leaving with like $200 million. Just not leaving with it, but had accrued 200 in Swiss banks, offshore accounts, stuff like that.
Thanks, and Swiss people.
Yeah, so he ends up escaping and never was put on trial, never was extradited. He ends up actually like dying of old age, and
because did he actually do anything wrong? Did people accuse him?
Yeah, they like eventually found mass graves of like, pretty like they would it was a dictatorship, and they fucking executed you. In fact, like when the grandma landed with 82 people in the marshes and from when Fidel went from Mexico to Cuba, they executed all of those guys.
So that's how a lot of them died.
Yeah.
From that, okay.
Yeah. And if you were suspected of, trying to overthrow the government, they would either throw you in jail or kill you. In fact, there was this like account of this like guy that Batista put in charge to roam Havana in this white Cadillac, and he would like, it was like this like showboaty like thing, and he'd drive around in like a white suit, and he was like the sheriff almost, and he would like go execute people and like take care of the opposition in the city. So so when they made gambling illegal, the casino, in fact, like as soon as Batista left, the city fell into unrest for like 2 days. He leaves as soon as he was starting to feel the pressure at this point. Like the rebels had already taken over like two major cities, embarrassed the army in several accounts. They had the rebels were able to be very sneaky and manipulative as it pertains to PR events. They ended up getting on the Ed Sullivan Show, which was like the most popular variety show by CBS at the time in the 50s in the United States. Different New York Times. In fact, big New York Times guy ends up flying down to Cuba, smuggling in a camera with his wife, actually. I want to get to an important part, but let me finish this. But so he ends up like driving into the Sierra Maestra, which is like the rural area of which like the rebels set up their base, and he like interviews Castro and like does all these things, and again like the rebels would like Fidel would like have, I don't know, like 15, 30 guys like walk around in a circle around them while they're doing the interview to make it look like their army was like all around them to inflate the numbers from like 100 to like thousands. And they constantly always lied about how many rebels they had. And so like he was getting a lot of attention and PR, and like people like a good revolutionary story. You know, Che was very like well known for his efforts. He was like one of the commanders. But one of the things that was really interesting about this story is how the women played their part in this rebellion, and a lot of what happened couldn't have happened without the support of the women in Cuba. A lot of like supply runs and money moving around and keeping people fed and moving communications around couldn't be done without them. What they would do is they would basically like flirt their way through if they got stopped by like an army battalion, they would like basically flirt with them.
Nice.
Hide like. There's even instances of moving bombs and ammunition around by like hiding under their like skirts and stuff throughout the city, and like just like fundraising and all that. Like it really, really is kind of like a feminist movement and the time that really Cuba and the rest of the world hadn't seen. And so anyway, yeah, they had captured a couple cities, and so Batista kind of knew it was coming. So he was like, they're gonna kill me. So he just fled on New Year's Eve, when they always have this big party. Like he ends up like having like this smaller party, and he basically announced to everybody like, hey, I'm leaving. Like, and they were like, what the fuck? And some people, he's like, yeah, you all have to come with me now. He had a list. He like made a list ahead of time of the people he wanted to tell and invite to that party. And some people didn't even have a chance to go home and grab their things. They just went straight to the airfield and took off in 3 planes. There's 3 planes that took off. And there's even one guy, one of his like army generals, like couldn't even go home to get his wife and children, ends up leaving without them.
What? Because he
Yeah.
thought he would be killed or something?
Well, yeah, he knew that like if he got on like the next plane or whatever, there would be no next plane.
Yeah.
But Batista was like, no, they're gonna make
always
it.
get on a raft.
Yeah, exactly, the old way.
The grandma. Okay.
So yeah, then like next day, Fidel wakes up. It's New Year's Day, and they, the communication makes it all the way into the jungle. That I think they're actually in Santiago, which is one of the big cities that he had left. And as soon as that happens, people in Havana start like fucking freaking out. They go start looting. They take a Tommy gun to the Tropicana back bar and just completely like shatter the entire thing. They start ripping liquor bottles off the shelf and throwing them around and fucking making a ruckus of all the lobbies and the casinos. And
who are these people?
They were just
random
like
people?
opposition supporters, just like the people were oppressed and people were sick of being
because
taken
they're like
advantage
the
of.
casino's gone. Like,
Well, yeah, it doesn't serve
everything.
us. Like,
Yeah.
fuck these people. And at the temperature and climate in the time was that Batista was like raking in all this money, and the people of Cuba weren't benefiting from those casinos. It was the people back in the United States and the guy at the top of the hill.
Right.
And the rebels, they had propaganda too, so I'm sure they were educating the mass on like why you should not support the regime. So yeah, they take over and they have a parade for Fidel, and eventually end up deciding like to do this whole communist like socialism thing, where they declare a new constitution. It's got Marxism, communist like principles and pillars of it.
What were they before?
It was essentially like actually, that's a good question. I don't know what you would label Batista's like regime as. I'm sure it was like a democracy. They always call them democracies, but they're not. They're it's like a fake democracy with no checks and balances.
Yeah. So it says that he served as the president of Cuba, but he ruled as a military dictator. I don't see what the actual government was. So did Castro say he was going to bring democracy to Cuba though?
Yeah, he wanted like free elections
and with the kind of Marxist.
No, that's the thing is like even the CIA vetted these guys multiple times, but as they were in the rebellion, and like I think it was Che was the only one that had suspicions of communism, because you got to remember back in the 50s, the Red Scare, communism was a big deal. And it continued to be a big deal. In fact, that's one of the reasons why Cuba is the way it is today, of course, right? Because after Fidel ended up taking power, he basically nationalized the entire country, which means like all of the United States property on the island became Cuban property. And then they started taking aid from the USSR, which is the Soviet Union. In fact, to the tune of $33 billion they took over the course of the from when Fidel took power to when the Soviet Union collapsed, and in the 80s.
And that was because the Soviet Union wanted a base there or something,
yeah,
right?
it was a strategic, alliance. Everybody knows the Cuban Missile Crisis, closest we've ever been to a total nuclear war.
Not the kids these days.
Yeah. But, yeah, and so the United States in the 60s decided to instill a trade embargo, which is still persists to this day. In fact, it is one of the longest trade embargoes in the history of trade, spanning over 6 decades.
And that's why why people say that Cuban cigars are not legal in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
Because you can't
trade with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But could you go to Cuba and bring back a cigar?
That's a good question. I wonder if, like, for personal consumption, if it's okay. I don't know. I don't know because, first, I've never been there and I haven't researched it. But yeah, they, in fact, Guantanamo Bay, everybody knows what that is. That's, like, the military base in Cuba. At this point, and ever since, Fidel in the early 60s, that base is considered illegal. In the perspective of the Cuban government, but they don't do anything because, like,
yeah,
why would you?
So that I didn't know that was technically in Cuba.
Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Okay. I knew it was somewhere down there, some island.
Yep.
But is Guantanamo Bay an island?
No, Guantanamo Bay is.
I mean, it's a
as
bay,
described in the name.
Yeah.
It's just a bay on the coast of Cuba.
Okay, right. But is it? But it's not like an island off of Cuba, like a bay of an island off of Cuba. It's part of the mainland.
No, I think it's part of the mainland.
Really?
Yeah.
And they've always just been okay with it being there.
At one point they were. Yeah. In fact, sometimes the rebels actually had some United States citizens join the cause, and they would like fly in, They would go through Guantanamo Bay and defect. Or like, sometimes they would go into Guantanamo Bay and like steal some ammunition and arms.
Like
the rebels would.
Does the U.S. pay Cuba to keep that there?
I don't know.
I feel like they probably did at some point, right? Or they had some kind of partnership. So Cuba.
That's usually how it happens. Is like in lieu of payment, you have like a trade agreement, or there's some sort of like beneficial. In a lot of European countries, it's like protection.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If the United States has a base in
Middle
your country
East,
and you get invaded, I'm pretty sure the United States is going to care about that. So there's a good interest in having a United States base there, or at least an embassy at the very least.
Right.
But
yeah, that's weird. So Fidel came in, said, "This guy is a dictator. We need to change Cuba."
And he wasn't the only leader of like opposition groups. There were multiple factions, call them. There was like at one point, there was a faction in Havana that stormed the Capitol, if you would, where Batista's office is, and they came like minutes away from killing the guy.
We don't use storm the Capitol.
Yeah, we don't say that. Self-censorship, folks. Yeah, they like, and it wasn't like a part of the rebellion. And
so did these people work together, or they were
at some point
competing?
They did. Yeah, there were certain common interests between them that allowed them to be a little strategic. But one of the fears that Fidel had when Batista left was because when Batista left, he basically was like, okay, you're the president now, you're the commander of the army now, I'm out. And so Fidel was like, fuck no, like if he's out, like we're in. And so that he was afraid that, if they didn't get back to Havana within days, like there would be a new government and a new guy in charge from either, another faction or one of Batista's guys. And it just wasn't the case. I think there was just like a unanimous thing that happened when Fidel came to the capital that they were just like, no, this is the guy. And there was also moments that wooed over the common public. Like for instance, he's made a couple of like famous speeches in his day, but which is wild too. Like at the beginning when he was first arrested, he was thrown in Cuban prison. This is before the Grama landing. This is before he was exiled to Cuba. But he gets thrown in jail, and instead of Batista like executing him or like keeping him in jail indefinitely, he ends up getting released. That was like the biggest mistake from the perspective of Batista. No, he gets released from Cuban jail, but he flees to Mexico because he's afraid that they just released him. Because the last thing that Batista wanted to do was execute him in jail or have something happen to him in jail, because it would create political unrest. People would riot.
Because you want to execute people quietly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to make it seem like, oh, he resisted arrest again when we went to arrest him, so we had to kill him. So he was afraid that was going to happen. So as soon as he was released, and he visited his mom, I think. He visited a few people in Havana, but he felt like he was being followed, which I think for all accounts, I think he was. So he leaves. He goes to Mexico to basically like start training an army. And it was like, that's when, we catch up to the Grama landing with 82 soldiers. But the point I was trying to make before was he gets arrested the first time, and he makes this like famous speech. He's like, history will basically absolve me of my sins and yada yada. And throughout the course of the next 3 or 4 years, he makes a couple of profound speeches, and the one where he makes after Batista leaves, there's a moment where like some doves were released in the crowd, and one of them lands on his shoulder, and it basically is there for the rest of his speech. And like that's like a symbol of peace, right? Doves. And so like there was this like, I don't know, savior moment from the crowd that like, oh, Fidel's the guy. Like, of course, here's this like sign. Cubans are like really superstitious too. I'm not saying that just because my wife. I'm saying that because my wife is Cuban and she's superstitious. But anyway, I think it comes from their culture. But yeah, like that was their guy at that moment. Like nobody really wanted. In fact, the guys that were like put in place from Batista when Batista was leaving, they really were like, yeah, I'm not gonna like. They of course took their post, but they didn't roll over. They rolled over when they were told to, basically, when the new government came in. Didn't really have a leg to stand on at that point.
So they implement communism, and communism's not inherently wrong. Maybe how it's been implemented, in like we've seen throughout history, but one could argue that Castro actually had good intentions for Cuba implementing communism.
Yeah, it was certainly sort of this blend of nationalism, socialism, communism. Like for instance, they have free healthcare there, even though the doctors don't get paid anything and they don't have access to like good drugs.
And
like,
they have the cancer cure.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So now. I get it. It's like, okay, this guy who was the last dictator, it was like all for him. Now it's all for the people. Like everyone's equal. Everyone gets a share of
not really.
of what Cuba gets, right?
As long as you don't speak out against us.
Yeah. But that's the idea. Now, why not the U.S.'s characterization of Cuba, but the people in Cuba, like. Someone who fought against Fidel. What was the reason for that? Like, why do people view Fidel and Raúl and the current government as bad?
Yeah, it's part of history that I'm less familiar with because they don't really get into that in the book. But I think it's just like the overall lack of freedoms. There's certain personal freedoms that you have, but if you don't like something, you just kind of have to like suck it up, buttercup, and go along with the crowd.
But are they doing the same things, or do people accuse them of doing the same things that like Batista did? Like executing opposition.
Yeah, they do that.
Like that.
They do that. Yeah, it's more jail sentences and things like that. Yeah, I think generally speaking, like Fidel thought he was doing the right thing. I think they all at the top thought they were doing the right thing. Giving free healthcare, having access to utilities and things like that for the people, but there was a sense of nationalism that got in the way, and basically picking the wrong ally at the time in the Cold War. When they took over,
that the Soviet Union had a lot of influence on how Fidel led.
Absolutely,
Cuba.
yeah. Of course, when you're taking money from 30 to the tune of $33 billion, you kind of have to like strategically align with some of the core values. But from the United States perspective, very anti-communism, very anti-dictatorship, if you will. Also, like taking, I think it was like $1 billion at the time when they nationalized U.S. property assets on the island to Cuba. It was like almost $1 billion, which I don't know if you like. I don't know if that's accounted for inflation or not when I read that number.
Oh, okay.
But it's a lot of assets since the United States was kind of like, fuck you. Like, so there's a layer of things where it really made them
and they started
not
partnering
friendly
with our
mortal enemies at the time. Certainly didn't help. And they just never have really gotten over that. There's like a point in history, I think Obama loosened the trade embargo, especially when it comes to like tourism, and then Trump kind of reversed it back to its like latter state or previous state.
Do you think that Obama originally kind of loosened it to try to like build a better relationship with Cuba and maybe influence Cuba to be more open, or you think it was just because it was popular, people wanted that?
I don't know. I like I said, I don't know much about that history part of things. I mean, I guess you could like guess, an olive branch might go a long way. But the fact of the matter is, like, United States isn't going to support a communist country, at least not if it gets something out of it. If it doesn't get something out of it, right now, all that Cuba really has to offer is tourism, tobacco, and sugar as exports.
And Guantanamo Bay.
But we do that anyways.
But didn't we close it?
No, it's still open.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
It was allegedly. Was it? I think we said we weren't going to send people there anymore, right?
I think Trump wanted to send illegal immigrants over there at one point.
Let's see.
I don't know if that ended up being a thing.
It's still operational with 15 detainees.
Yeah, so they have a lot of like the September 11th terrorisms terrorists there. That's a pretty controversial thing. I went down a rabbit hole reading that too. That's a wild story. Yeah, they're basically going to be there probably until they die.
It's crazy. It's crazy, like that they keep them. Like, imagine how much money it costs the U.S. to operate Guantanamo Bay for 15 people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could live for free for the rest of my life. Like, so could a lot of other people for the amount of money we spend keeping those 15 people there.
Yeah, and that's what's like reported to the Free Press.
Yeah, sure.
So there's probably some other
more
inmates there that are off the books.
Yeah.
If we're tinfoil hat moment.
We're gonna bring them to what's it called off of San Francisco?
Oh, Alcatraz.
Alcatraz, yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking, are they gonna ask for my rock back?
Yeah, because they're reopening it, right?
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe. But yeah, Chase and I each have like a small piece of Alcatraz. And,
yeah, I'll sell it back to you. I'll sell it back to you, Trump.
For $1 million.
$1 million.
It can be a loan. It's fine. Just won't pay it back.
Yeah, I'll put it on consignment for you guys if you just want to make my taxes go away.
Well, that's crazy. Speaking of taxes, you know what's crazy?
Taxes.
Have I told you this story about my tax situation? Please, nobody steal my identity. So last year, my CPA was filing my taxes, and they call me up, and because the way they do it is they fill in all these forms. They probably use some software for it, right? They make sure there's no special circumstances. If you do have special circumstances, they do what they need to do with all different forms. Then they send them to you. You look them over, and you tell them if it's correct or not. And then if it's correct, you sign it, and then they electronically file it with the state and federal governments if you have state taxes. So last year they called me up after I signed it, and they said, "Hey, somebody claimed your wife as a dependent on their taxes, and so the IRS rejected your electronic filing. So we're going to send you your documents, and you need to sign them and then mail them to the IRS." So I did that.
Didn't this happen to you before?
It happened last year.
Oh.
Like, it happened for 2023 taxes that I'd filed in 2024. So I file them. I send them in. I call the IRS like 6 times because, by the way, if you ever want to talk to the IRS, it's almost impossible unless you know the correct key sequence to input into your phone.
Nice.
Which you can Google, and it will tell you what to do.
ChatGPT will probably give it to you.
Probably, yeah. So if you ever need to talk to the IRS, go look it up, because otherwise it's so fucking hard to talk to them. So I finally get on, and I say, "Hey, this happened, and I want to figure out, like, what the situation is." And they basically tell me that Sarah cannot find out who claimed her on their taxes. Like, they cannot tell her. Sarah, the person, cannot find out who she is a dependent of, according to the IRS, who they accepted as her parental guardian, right? So and I'm like, okay, so how do I resolve this? Because I filed my taxes. Are you guys going to accept it? Which they eventually did. This is their answer. We will figure it out, and we'll contact you if we need to. Okay, sounds good. You'll figure it out. So this year, my CPA, who was kind of late, just filing my taxes on tax day, tries to electronically file them, calls me, "Hey, somebody claimed your wife as a dependent."
Oh, no.
Yeah. God damn it.
It was me.
They lied to me.
No.
Like,
you didn't figure it out.
Yeah, there's no chance that someone coincidentally did that this year and last year, and it's a different person. It's the same person doing it.
Yeah, it's the same person,
yeah.
probably.
So now I'm annoyed because we had to get an extension, so we had to have an extension filed, and then same thing, I had to send it in.
Do you have to pay extra for that, or is it?
I don't know yet. They haven't sent me the bill, but I think probably I have to pay. So I don't think you have to pay the IRS to do that. I could be wrong.
Oh, but the CPA guy is going to make you
I think
file.
so.
Yeah. Because there's another piece of paper that he has to turn in. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
If anybody's curious how much a CPA costs to file your taxes, it's not too bad. Like, it's expensive, especially because you can usually do it yourself. But if you have a little bit more complicated tax situation, you don't want to do it wrong, then you work with CPA. But for one piece of paper, if you want them to like declare something, it's $250.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, so I get it rejected again this year. I have to mail it in. The IRS owes me $9,000. And now I can't get my $9,000 until they accept my tax return, which last year was in October.
Damn. Is that because you overpaid in taxes?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot to overpay.
I know.
You probably should not be doing that.
Well, the problem is that the year before I underpaid $20,000.
So you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Our income fluctuates, and like financial situation over the past few years has changed a lot, and so it was hard to get it right. Now it's a little more stable, so this coming year we should be pretty on the dot.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So really annoying. By the way, if that happens to anyone else, don't plan on the IRS figuring out that situation, especially now because they defunded them even more. Get a PIN. So you can get a PIN. I don't know how, and I also don't know how they prove Sarah is Sarah when somebody else can claim that they are Sarah. I guess you just send in a form. But yeah, you get a PIN, and then every time you file taxes for the rest of your life, you have to have that PIN in order to file.
What if you don't? What if you forget it?
I guess you don't have to pay your taxes.
Loophole.
Yeah,
Everybody
loophole.
get pins and then forget them.
Well, what's crazy is this person's just been getting a tax credit for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's so weird to me, like so crazy.
Is it her dad?
No, it's not her dad.
Yeah, okay.
It's so crazy that for like, I don't know. I think for the last 7 years, Sarah and I have been doing I think like the last 7 years. We've been married for 5 years. This is the 6th year. We've been filing as married, as and then the couple of years before that, I claimed her as a dependent because we were living together. I was paying for her costs. For the last 7 years, we have been filing our taxes together, and then suddenly she can be claimed as a dependent on some random person's taxes. Mm-hmm. What?
Yeah.
Like, what did she just become? Like, I died and now she's out of work and someone's just random is just taking care of her that she has no association with?
Yeah.
No fucking way, IRS. Get your shit together.
Yeah, Doge. Why don't you look into that?
Yeah, Doge.
Yeah, Doge.
Fix the IRS.
Doge it up.
Didn't they promise to fix the IRS? They were going to write some software that made it so that they didn't have to do audits and shit anymore.
Easy as pie. I mean,
should have asked that AI to do it.
Should have asked ChatGPT. Speaking of AI, Microsoft said the other day that 30% of the total code that is made at the company is now done with AI.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if I believe it.
That's what the CEO said.
I started. Yeah, I know, but CEO doesn't know it. He doesn't know.
He doesn't know
shit
about anything.
Yeah. Okay, look.
Fuck him.
You can make it look like you just wrote 1,000 lines of code by generating like some JSON file like that declares your dependencies for some project. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, I don't know what they use to count what percentage of what is what, but I tried out Cursor. That's one of the really, really big popular ones for writing code. Oh, for AIs writing code.
Who owns that one?
I don't know who owns. It might be Microsoft. I don't know.
Okay. Because Microsoft has Copilot.
Oh yeah, that's Copilot. It looks like it's I don't know. I don't think any big company officially owns them. Probably got a bunch of money from all those companies, but looks like AnySphere Inc. But a lot of people, it's pretty common as being one of the better ones for writing code, and so I tried it out, and it was pretty good. But I don't know. I keep seeing these things like these CEOs coming out being like 8 months and like almost every engineer is going to be replaced. And I just don't see that with what I see as Cursor now and what I saw from ChatGPT. When did that come out?
GPT?
1 year ago.
ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Oh, a few years now.
Yeah.
2022, late 22, I think.
So like
23.
a couple years ago, not a big improvement.
I think it has. I don't know. I think it has.
So I think it has for like conversational things and like research and things like that.
Language, video, and graphics is like I've seen stuff now where I just can't tell if it's AI or not. And 3 years ago, I could immediately tell within like milliseconds.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now it's like now you can do video and some of the video is harder because it's video, but like image, it's near perfect now. And so I think maybe their projections are maybe it's not 8 months, but I think it's close.
I can't even get it to do like things for an already existing project.
Yes, right.
It's very good. It's actually really helpful, but I don't see it. I don't see what other people are saying. Like it can create a project, right? You could say I need a web app to do this thing, and I'm sure it can create it. But it will not be perfect. Like there'll be a lot of things that probably need to be taken care of. I just don't see it being like, I think there are a lot of software development jobs that are more like programming jobs. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So like very simple software development jobs,
scripts
I think like that is probably what people are talking about more, but like very complex architectures, I just don't see it, at least for more years.
Yeah, a few years probably. The thing that for me that's hard right now for the AI space is the consistency of something. Like if you wanted it to give you 10 iterations of the same character, like for instance in art generation, 10 iterations of maybe who you are. If I gave him a photo of you and I'm like, put Myles, skiing or mountain biking, or like it would all look a little different. You would look a little different in each one. Like the consistency factor is like that's sort of hard. I think that it hasn't really nailed that. Like if you wanted to make a whole comic book, it'd be really hard. I mean, it would be easier than not having AI to make it, but it would be hard to get like everything consistent throughout the story, where everything looks the same as it did in the following page of the previous page.
I think,
but it will get there.
I think probably it will get there with our help. I think what it lacks is critical thinking. Like that it should like think like, oh, I just created something that's not actually consistent with the last thing I created, even though and I wasn't told to make it not consistent. So I shouldn't even have created that. I should have.
Not very good at understanding what's right and what's wrong,
right.
And because the training data could be wrong. I think, like for instance, I'm playing Oblivion right now, Oblivion Remastered that came out, and I'm using ChatGPT to help me with some of the gameplay, and while some of it's good, a lot of it's not good. Like a lot of it would say there's a trap door in the corner of the room, and there's not a trap door. Okay. And maybe that's because the remastered is something different than the original game, but I don't think so. For the most part, the game's pretty much the same. And I think it's taking some Reddit post that was wrong, or like maybe it was like incorrect in saying something, and it's using it as fact.
Yeah, I think it I don't know, because I experienced the same thing with writing code, where it will I'll tell it like hey, do this thing, it does it, and then run it, and it fails to run. And then it starts to think like, oh, I think it's not working because of this thing, it'll fix something. And then it'll get to a point where it's basically like kind of running out of ideas, and it's like making up like a change that it made that was correct. It will tell itself that it was wrong for a made up reason.
Yeah, right.
And so I think it's just that like it needs to give you an answer, and it's just giving you the best
answer.
Basically.
Yeah. And
the thing that it predicts would be most likely, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's how it probably works. We don't really know the mechanics behind some of these things.
Just an Excel file.
Yeah, it's just an Excel database running in AWS.
On the cloud.
Yeah. I was listening to, speaking of AWS, I was listening to the CEO of Epic Games. He was talking about how they had to scale Fortnite during the pandemic because it went from like 1 million to like 15, 20 million like concurrent users, and how they literally had in some countries had to drop ship, like AWS drop shipped servers into, like, for instance, Brazil, to like basically like overnighted it to get, the bandwidth and server load to support that many concurrent users.
Yeah.
And they all they did was just hire AWS. Imagine the AWS bill that Epic Games has to pay every month.
I know, it's crazy.
Or annually to support 15, 20 million players.
Well, it's crazy that they even run on AWS and don't have their own hardware. And maybe they do in some places, and maybe they just have a really good partnership with AWS. That could be it also.
Well, I think I think it's probably like long-term success, but you have to understand like the volatility of the gaming industry could make things really good for you in one day and really bad for you in the next, and to be able to just turn off servers and say, hey, we don't need these anymore, other than just buying. Because that hardware is so expensive.
Yeah,
and to maintain it,
it's so expensive.
On top of that,
but like,
oh my god, you wouldn't want to.
You can't just go to AWS and be like, we need like 15,000 compute nodes.
But you can, and they did.
Well, no, they can and they did, but they probably paid for it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so they paid for the hardware.
Yeah, it's definitely like one of those like big client moments when you're like, yeah, we need like enough server compute for 15 million people, and AWS is going, who the fuck are you? And
right.
They go, we're Epic Games, and they go, okay, well, I guess that's what you need. Here's what it's going to cost, and they go, sweet. I mean, but when you're Fortnite and you're making billions of dollars a year, that becomes
But to that point, I
business.
doubt they could then 1 year later go, hey, AWS, remember the 15,000 computers we had you order? We want to turn those off and not be billed.
Oh yeah, there's a service agreement that.
So they could have done it themselves. But I get it. I mean, that's not what their expertise was in. So they worked with a cloud computing company.
And also, like it makes sense
globally
from
distributed.
I was gonna say like AWS may be like, okay, we don't need you. We just now double the size of our servers in Brazil, and that's a good thing for us because we're growing anyways. Yeah. And now we just opened up, double the amount of server storage or power for Brazil users, and that's our 3 or 5 year plan.
What is Fortnite user count nowadays?
I don't know.
So you said it went to like 15 million?
I think they have like 20
million.
Globally,
really?
Yeah.
Really? Only 20 million?
Concurrent users?
Yeah.
That is like the most of any game ever, I think.
Oh. Well, there's just a lot of people.
I mean,
there's a lot of young
that's
people.
That's a lot of
in
fucking
China,
players.
So. Let's see.
What does it say?
All-time peak within the last 5 months was 14 million.
Yeah.
But their 24-hour peak is 1.7. That's interesting. They must have events or something.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Yeah, I think they have those like where they bring in celebrities.
That must be so annoying to have to normally support 2 million customers and then you suddenly have to support 14 million.
Hey, he talks about the guy on the podcast. He talks about how the code is just so well written to scale on their end. and that there's a lot of really talented people working at Epic to make it happen.
Yeah, I bet.
Which is like the thing you say as a CEO.
But like for how well, I mean, I don't hear about Fortnite outages. I don't keep up to date with Fortnite, but it's not like I'm seeing this stuff in the news. Really, yesterday?
Yesterday, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Apparently, Apple denied the new Fortnite app, and so it was down in several countries.
Yeah, but who plays Fortnite?
A lot of people.
On your phone? Really?
Yeah, because like there's more iPhones than gaming consoles by like I don't know, factor of hundreds.
So kids and stuff who don't have like a PlayStation or something. Huh, interesting. You know, Grand Theft Auto 6 is only coming out on consoles like it usually does for the first few years.
And then it's going to PC?
Yeah.
Which is really weird, right? Isn't that weird?
They do that. I don't know what the reason is. Maybe it's just because it's easier for them to develop on the consoles and then port it to PC or something. Yeah. Like they focus on the two main things. I'm not really sure. It is really weird because a lot more people have gaming computers nowadays than they did maybe like when Grand Theft Auto 5 or even especially 4 came out.
Yeah, like the PlayStation 5 is a powerful, economical machine that will give you like value for what you get, and I think in computing power. But I just didn't foresee it being the console that is like going to drive the new Grand Theft Auto 6.
Well, it's PlayStation and Xbox.
Well, yeah, but like they're more or less the same when it comes to computing power. Right. Yeah,
I think. I don't know why they do it. Maybe because they want it to be current gen.
Oh, isn't there a PS5 Pro now?
Is there?
Didn't they come out with that PS5 Pro?
Is PS5 even in stock yet?
Yeah. The new tariffs. I don't know.
Right?
I don't know. Maybe not.
Remember?
Maybe not.
You ended up getting one at one point, but we were all going to buy a PlayStation 5 because we all played on PlayStation 4. We didn't have gaming computers, and the PlayStation 5 was so hard to get that we ended up all getting gaming computers. If it wasn't for it being so challenging, I don't know if we would have made that leap.
I know. It is kind of interesting to speculate. That time too, it was also sort of hairy for GPUs.
Yeah, it was expensive.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that we all decided to invest in computers at that time.
We all had that extra COVID.
It was like the most expensive time to buy a computer.
Myles got that COVID stipend money from Trump, and he was like going straight to NVIDIA.
I bought a Corvette with it, but then I realized I couldn't afford it because we only got 2 stimulus checks.
He thought the stimulus checks were just going to keep coming.
I thought they came every 3 months. That was the problem.
Myles abused the PPP loans. Just going to say it.
Yeah,
I never gave that back.
Loan. I created an LLC that month.
Yeah.
Took a $10,000 PPE. PPP.
PPE.
What was it? PPP.
Yeah, PPP.
Triple P. Is that what people call it?
Yeah, Triple P.
Trip P.
Yeah, like Triple D, like the TV show with Guy Fieri, but it's Triple P.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's all about abuse and fraud of PPP loans.
Yep.
I am jealous.
Why? Because you could have taken more PPP, but you didn't?
Because I didn't get any PPP.
Oh, yeah, I didn't get any PPP either.
I
was probably paid with PPP.
Oh, yeah, that's nice.
For my job. My job was secure from PPP.
So there you go.
Yeah, it worked out. I did benefit from it.
You were not furloughed or laid off because of PPP.
Pretty nice not to have a job at that point.
Yeah.
No complaints.
Work for a German company.
They were like,
and they got German.
They got German PPP.
PPP, I'm sure. And they probably got some in the U.S. too. I mean,
yeah,
if they
probably
didn't, they're stupid.
Yeah,
because they're incorporated. So.
Yeah, they definitely did then. Yeah. They like took from every country.
But that's not why I wouldn't have gotten laid off, because we have long-term contracts with communications companies, which were not affected like airports.
That's very true. People still need to talk online.
And people probably talked more than they ever had.
They should have. They should have.
should
Zoom.
have.
Remember Zoom before the pandemic?
I used Zoom before the pandemic. Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was new to me when I joined my company. We were using Skype, and then we moved over to Zoom because, well, Skype actually just ended.
Yes, end of life.
Yeah, end of life.
Just like Windows 10.
Oh, aren't we only on Windows 11?
Mm-hmm.
How did they end of life 10?
End of support for
Don't people
Windows
still
10.
use like XP? You know what?
Some of the people who don't care about updating their software.
We have tracking. My company, we have a web app where people sign up, and we have this tracking that tells us which operating system people are using.
Oh yeah,
a lot of people are using Windows 7.
What?
Yeah,
that's wild.
I know.
How are they doing that?
I don't know. Just really old computers. They just don't allow to be updated, I guess.
It's like work computers, or is it like
it's like
servers and Internet of Things computers?
No, it's like work. It's people. Yeah, it's like
wild.
Home computer.
Wild. It's weird to me because I feel like that is highly insecure because security protocols have not been updated for Windows 7 in forever. Also, if you're programming or using any sort of software for that computer, and even just from like a company security standpoint, how can you get insured as a company from all these like big security insurance firms when you have people using outdated end of life support computers?
It's like a small business, like really small businesses, like Jared's Subway franchise,
Oh, not within your company, but your
company.
clients.
Yeah, my
clients, your clients. I was gonna say yes. Oh, well, of course, yeah. Yeah. They're dumb. They should at least update.
It's like when you go to.
But here's the thing, though, because a lot of their software that they're probably running, back when you had Windows 7, the digital landscape was so different. You didn't subscribe to things. You just bought one license, and that was your license forever.
And now you can't change.
Now you if you update, suddenly now you got to pay for Photoshop monthly. Before I got Photoshop, it was on a fucking disc
from Russia.
No, it was legit from
cracked
Adobe.
Version of
cracked version.
You paid one price for it. You
paid one price, and that was it. It was like $300, and you got all the, and also the updates too. So that when they would update, you got that for free too. Same with that was the case for all the Windows services like PowerPoint, Excel, Word. If you bought a license for Home, it was called Microsoft Home Suites. Right. That was what it was, and then they went to Microsoft 365, which is just a rebrand that allowed them to just charge monthly.
You could install it on any computer too.
Any computer, and they didn't have logins. You didn't log in.
Right. I think once they started doing that, even when you had the disk, that kind of changed. They could tell. You would install Windows on a computer that you just bought or something that didn't come with Windows, for instance, and it knew that license key if it had been used. Yeah, they started doing that, and then now it's it's super weird.
I mean, it's like all these other industries have tried to do this forever. The gaming industry recently did it with Game Pass. The movie industry did it with Netflix.
But Game Pass, I feel like, was a little bit of a disadvantage to the game companies because, for me, now I am not usually the type of person I might buy one game every 3 years that I play a lot, and then. There's a lot of other games I want to play, but I won't buy them just because I don't want to pay $60, $70 to play 10 hours of a game or something. And so if I just pay $11 a month, I can play a bunch of different games.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think overall just the ease of access to things have made it super competitive, and this might be the best thing we have at this point. Because if you think about it, there's I'm going to make this game. I'm going to go try it out. Maybe a distributor buys my game. It's like the film industry. You go to the film festivals and then you sell your movie to a distribution company, whether it's Netflix, HBO, Time Warner, all those companies. And then after that, like, depending on the deal, they have it for 2 years, a year, whatever, the initial distribution rights. Then you sign another digital licensing deal to Netflix or Hulu or Prime, and then they have it for X amount of years, call it 2-3 years. And then, like, you can, sign up for move it to another one for probably nickels on the dime or on the dollar. And then you make another movie, maybe a sequel, and you line it up with like you switching, distribution companies. And so there's like value in that. I think with the gaming industry, it's doesn't quite translate in the same way, but with things like Game Pass or what's the other game one? I think Game Pass actually is one of the only ones.
Was it like EA?
Oh, EA Play. Yeah, it has like the EA catalog. They're doing kind of the same thing, like I noticed on Game Pass now, Grand Theft Auto 5 just got added. So I'm sure they're doing that to reach a wider audience to basically increase like interest in the next one, right? So there's some strategic advantages as a game developer that you can leverage these licensing deals if you're big enough and if you're popular enough, right?
Yeah, so do you remember when Grand Theft Auto 5 came out?
Mm-hmm.
They spent, I think it was like $500 million on development, marketing.
Yeah, it was like half of that was just marketing.
Yeah. So they're estimating that the cost of 6 is between $1 and $2 billion.
Wow.
Now, if I can play that game for $11,
$11 a month.
Well,
for
maybe I only play
year.
it for 1 month because I put the cheat codes in
a year.
Yeah,
get real sick of it real soon. You put like a little stop date on it. All right, I'm gonna stop playing this in 2 years.
But what has kept me buying Game Pass every month? Because how many games have I played? I've had Game Pass now for how long?
I don't know, maybe like 6 months.
6 months, yeah. And in the last, when I first got it, the first month I got it, I played a few games because there was like, there's some games on here I want to play. I'd never played before. In the last probably 4 months, I have played one game. and I paid $12 like a month. It's $30 to play it. And that's Minecraft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on top of that,
and I own it already, by the way.
Yeah. And I'm paying $7, $8 a month.
Is it?
To have the server.
Damn.
So like I'm paying like $12 plus another $8. It's like $20 in. Yeah. Just to play one game.
Well, you're playing Oblivion.
Well, I'm playing Oblivion. That's nice.
You know what else came out on there?
Doom.
Call of Duty also came out.
Yeah, we played that a little bit. Yeah.
But that was like when we first got it. I think we actually got it for that.
Mm-hmm.
We played some zombies, and then we got bored, and then
when Game Pass came out originally, it was like PlayStation was the first one to do it. They had and then Google dipped their toes in with the Arcadia, I think it was called. I think Prime also had their gaming.
Luna, right?
Luna, yeah.
Or is it the Google one? I can't remember.
No, yeah. And then Game Pass did it, and they made all these strategic partnerships with, like, they bought Bethesda.
Because it's Microsoft. I mean, it was Xbox, which is owned by Microsoft. Yeah. And so, they already had, like, so many connections.
Yep.
And then did Microsoft buy Bethesda? Or whoever?
Yeah, Microsoft bought Bethesda. Those guys made a bag. And, yeah, I mean, like, the Sony thing didn't work out. I think they still have it. They have the I think they like included it now into like the PlayStation Plus thing, and you can, like,
I think there's different levels of it.
Yeah, to like do that, but yeah, like the Game Pass has gotten pretty decent with like the additions of different games, and I think they're obviously playing the long game from Game Pass, and I think it might work out for them, but they'll be like the leader, I think, in the gaming industry in a few short years if they continue to make these like important strategic alliances with developers. Yeah, Activision Blizzard, that acquisition or merger just got approved. They the FCC failed to convince the government that it was a monopoly. So that will move forward, apparently.
Didn't it already happen?
No.
It didn't?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I don't think so. Maybe it did, and they were reviewing it post-mortem. I don't know.
I thought the way that happens is basically the companies just do it, and then whoever the FCC,
It's
I
a
guess,
big
can
bet.
come back and
If that's the case.
Who was it? It was Microsoft?
It was Activision Blizzard.
Oh yeah, Activision, which is not owned by Microsoft, but they have a partnership.
I think they have a partnership. Yeah, because it's on Game Pass.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that all works. Everybody's owned by like 4 people, and the government's run by 6 people. The old Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy way.
So Microsoft bought Activision.
Okay, well, there you go.
Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard for $69 billion.
A mere $69 billion.
And I think that, they own a bunch of the companies now.
Yeah.
69, that seems...
And also included in your Xbox Game Pass is EA Play, which is the access to all the EA games.
Do they own EA as well?
I think Activision is a subsidiary of EA or something like that.
Oh, maybe majority stake or something.
Know. There's like several developers under that.
So. Yeah. Weird.
Yep. There's like Infinity Ward.
I guess it is what it is. I think like the gaming industry transformed a lot over the years of gaming when consoles first started coming out, and companies have always tried different ways of monetizing. Like you had PlayStation, who like took a loss on their PlayStations because they would sell games.
Yeah.
And now you have game developers making incredibly massive, expensive games, betting that they'll make money off of them, selling them for $70, and now you have them selling them for $12 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably because something before that wasn't working. So like selling games individually, I guess, wasn't working well enough if people were creating these game passes.
Yeah, I mean, it's all like you could be convinced to say that it's like a trend that ends up pushing in that direction. But there's certain consumerism red flags for me that can potentially harm us. One thing that was interesting was the new Nintendo Switch 2 has like in their service agreement that if you alter their hardware anyway, they can deactivate your device remotely.
Yeah, I saw that.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
so you really don't like own the device,
Yeah.
It's just like you own the device, but the software that runs on it, I guess, is like at that point not really fully in your control.
Do you own the device?
I don't own the device.
Yeah, I guess you own the device and then a license to their software.
It's mine now. Nintendo couldn't walk into your house and be like, no, sir, mine now. Mm-hmm. But they could turn it off and be like, fuck you.
Yeah, because it's the software, and then what you could do is install your own software on it.
Yeah. Like
that probably won't work
thing.
Because it's their own architecture, and they probably don't put out the architectural documentation.
There's good reasons to it, but on paper it sounds pretty nefarious, don't you think?
Like, what if you bought a car and they were like, if you install seat warmers, mm-hmm. then we'll brick your car.
Yeah.
You'd be like,
that would suck.
What? So like,
as long as you explain that to me before I buy it, then we might be better off.
I think that would be such a tricky legal thing too, because you would have to, like, you could argue in court that the car company didn't make it clear enough that if you install, because it's so common to install seat warmers in a car, that they didn't make it clear enough that they would brick your car if you installed them, and then you would probably win.
I'm suing.
And you would probably win nothing.
0, because lawyers are expensive.
Did you see the thing that's like, there's like a $70 million, $90 million settlement from Apple because like Siri sometimes sent or always sent data to their servers that they weren't supposed to, or something weird like that.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone's email. Like I got an email about it, I think, from some random lawyer. I don't know how they have my email address, but and then it's like become part of this lawsuit, and I'm like, how many iPhones are there? Like 1 billion iPhones, you know? I'm like $90 million.
Yeah, I'm gonna get 2 cents.
Yeah. I signed up for one class action lawsuit in my life, and it was when Coca-Cola, when Red Bull said that it gives you wings, whatever. It was like one of those weird things. I think it was like that Red Bull made it seem like it was healthy for you.
No, it was naked juices.
It was naked juices, yeah. And I had bought a naked juice like one time, and I was like, I was affected by this. And so I got a check in the mail for 98 cents.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
I never cashed it.
You know the amount of times you should have signed up for all of these class act. I mean, you probably would have like $10 by now.
Probably. The second class action that I considered signing up for was Hyundai when I got my car stolen. Somebody eventually did it, and I can claim damages.
You should.
If I get it repaired first. And I might get reimbursement.
Oh.
Yeah. But what I have to do is like, I never repaired it because I didn't want it to happen again. Yeah. Because I'm like, somebody easily stole it once. Somebody could easily steal it another time. Yeah. So
like
I never.
If the guy comes in and he sees gets into your car and he sees it's already been damaged and the little ignited, he's probably like, oh, this one's like been used.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I want to pick a new one.
So I just never fixed it, and I'm like, I'm not gonna spend $2,000 fixing this thing. It like I literally there's no problem, right? Like. Yeah. Before I put the key into a shaft, now there's just no shaft there. Everything else works the same way.
It still works.
Yeah.
You know.
So by the way, every time I take it to a mechanic or something, they're always like, hey, just so you know, it looks like your car was like someone tried to steal your car.
Yeah. You're like, yeah.
Oh, they didn't try to steal it. They stole it.
It was successful.
Yeah. But I can be part of that, but I had to first fix it.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, I'm not going to be a sucker and fix my own car and then not get paid out.
That's
true.
You know
what I mean?
Yeah, you gotta get paid out.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, maybe you can retroactively do it and still get your money. You know, be part of the change, Miles.
What I should do is have a mechanic fix it.
Yeah.
You know, what I mean? Charge me on paper.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I'll just pay them the taxes for it.
Yeah.
And then claim it.
Yeah. There you go.
Fraud. Probably shouldn't have said that on this podcast.
Yeah. Because now they know the game plan. Fuck. I know how many good ideas you've just given out.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm wiped from all sins moving forward.
Yeah. I never did anything wrong.
Yeah.
In my life. Hand on the Bible. This is the Bible.
Yep. Yeah. I'll back you up. I'll be your key witness. Oh fuck! I shouldn't have said that.
Oh no. But you're not gonna lie as a witness.
No, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna tell the truth.
Yeah,
the truth and only the truth.
Right.
So help me God.
Aren't you?
So help me Gab.
If you're here when I admitted to my crimes,
an accomplice.
Yeah.
We'll just scrub it out. We'll have to edit this.
Okay,
out.
we'll edit it.
Yeah, we'll edit it out. Guys, just don't let. Yeah, we'll edit this out.
Hey, AI, can you edit this part out?
Yeah. Should we back up to what we were talking about before? So AI and all these game companies.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We did not talk about Hyundai at all in this entire podcast. Fuck. I mean, I
know we have to
rewind it again. Shit. Well, we should end it. This was good. Go out to Cuba, support Cuba, support Game Pass. What else did we talk about? Support these delicious drinks. I'm gonna make these again. These were fucking good.
Yeah, they were really good. How does one support Cuba?
Pray for them. You know.
And what if you don't pray?
Send them stuff.
Send them things.
Nintendo
with your return address on the box.
Yeah, send them a Game Pass subscription.
Do you think that they have access to Game Pass?
Yeah, probably. Is there a Great Wall of Cuba, Firewall of Cuba? When the power's on, you can play. You know, when the power's on.
When
The
power's
rolling
on.
blackouts that are happening in Cuba kind of make that a little harder for you to do.
I get it.
Yeah.
I think.
What does the internet say?
It's
They said
like
they
not
only have PlayStation Plus.
It's not listed on the supported countries and regions.
Oops.
So, yeah.
Well, they could try again maybe next year.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching on YouTube. If you like us, give us a thumbs up or a like or a follow, whatever you can do on Instagram, X, Reddit. You can mail us in a coupon to Game Pass. That'd be great. Miles needs it. Anyway, yeah. Until next time, adios.
Or just Venmo me.
Venmo him
$11
$5
a month for the next 6 months so I can play Minecraft.
Bye.